As you can tell from that intro, we've had another Bradford PEAR give us an issue. Time to gas up the Ryobi and do some cleanup. So the question is, do I trim, top, or remove?
Look at that included bark right there.
If you look closely here, you can see it split down the trunk, so we're going to have to remove this.
Included bark.
Wow, look at all these woodpecker holes here. That's crazy. That guy was going to town. But I've decided to name this video how to trim a Bradford PEAR because honestly, these trees are such poorly structured trees that once they start having these issues, the best way to trim them is with a one cut at the bottom. So it took me many days to get this tree completely cut down. And this is the end of day one. Basically just removed that limb that had split. So we'll move on to day two here. Now we'll say this, if you have a Bradford PEAR in your yard, or God forbid, many Bradford PEARs like I do, I would highly suggest investing in a pole saw. You can cut these things down pretty easy. The trunk doesn't go up very high, so you just got a bunch of branches. And with a pole saw, and if you cut them at the right angle, these things come down very easily. So all the weight from these remaining few branches are all kind of weighed towards that shed. So if I would have cut it down just straight, it's going to fall directly on the middle of that shed. So what I want to do is clean up the entire area, get myself a getaway path. That way I can try to make the perfect angled cut so that I miss that shed ever so slightly. So let's see if we can make some magic happen here. Alright, the ground is clear and I got my getaway path. Now let's see if we can get this last limb down. Alright, so that was not perfect. It was not what I had in mind, and that was extremely loud. So I'll try to jump up here and start my chainsaw real quick to get these limbs out of the way. You know, it wouldn't take a second to move them, but this video was almost a 2-year Ryobi review, and this is the only problem this thing has ever given me in 2 years. Right when I really needed it, it was flooded. So couldn't get the chainsaw started. I actually ended up pulling my bicep. You can see me walking around here in a little bit holding my left arm. Had to quit for a couple days and then finish up later, but couldn't get the chainsaw started. So that limb laid there as evidence for 2 or 3 days. But you know, it didn't hit the shed hard. It didn't cause any damage at all. It was just louder than it probably should have been. So this is one of the negatives of having a 14-inch chainsaw. You can't cut down a thick trunk like this. It doesn't help that I have the nose guard on. I've been meaning to take that off. It would have helped a little bit in this case. But again, that's why people go for the bigger chainsaws. That's why they cost more too. And this here is the reason that woodpecker's been going to town on this tree. There is all kinds of bugs and ants and I guess termites in this thing. That's not a good sign. I hope it's only with this tree. I know the woodpecker's been on a couple other trees, especially, and not as bad, but the large tulip poplar in my front yard. There are some woodpecker holes in that, so I hope it's not near this bad. If so, then I've got a problem. And I have no idea what this is. It almost looks like a branch or another tree was growing up in the middle of this tree. Very strange. Alright, now we move on to the fun part. We get to burn this thing. I had to do this in 2 sessions. The first session was just to burn up all these leaves. Couldn't really get a good fire started, so I came back about 3 weeks later and finished it off. And this is the next morning, and for what was left around the outskirts there, I was able to use a shovel to put it back on top of the ash. There were hot coals underneath that burned it up straight away. And then the final results are here, and we're done. This is how you trim a Bradford pear.